go for a walk and have a little chat. A little bit better. Inevitably, once a month, every few weeks, in perusing some of the online forums, on YouTube, on Facebook, Base Notes, somebody gets into an argument about the age-old topic of niche versus designer scents. There are two very passionate sides to that argument. What's better? Is it worth the cost? Are you wasting your money spending those hundreds of dollars on niche scents? Do designers all suck? Are they all generic? Thought I'd throw in my 2 cents on it. And I don't really think that there's one argument to be made for either side. I don't think it's a black and white issue. And a lot of the arguments that are made are very polarized. All niche suck. All designers suck. I don't think that's a good way to look at it. Let's first start by defining what is a niche scent, what is a designer scent, because I think the definitions aren't really as clear as they used to be. A designer scent generally would refer to something that you would see mass marketed across many stores in the US and abroad. Things you'd find at a place like Macy's or Dillard's, somewhere like that. Those brands generally fall into the category of the ones we've all seen: Armani, Versace, Dolce & Gabbana, those types of scents. Calvin Klein, another very popular one. But it's not just the brand itself that defines what a quote-unquote designer scent is. It goes more into how wide the distribution is. Come to a park to get away from the noise, not be near all of it. So it comes down to the distribution of how many stores a brand will be in, and that usually is the classifier. Also gets into price. Designer bottles generally range in the $75 to $100, $125 range for the largest size bottle, usually 100 or 125 milliliters. Niche scents, on the other hand, have traditionally been those only found in very high-end department stores, as well as in individual lines boutiques, or through specialized fragrance stores such as Oswald or Lucky Scent, or any of those other types of one-off stores that you find generally in large cities. I'm not so sure that we can pigeonhole every scent, every line, every brand out there into those two categories. And I think that a good place to start this discussion is by saying it's probably not a good idea to think of it that way. Maybe we should evaluate more based on the cost. Certainly is an important component. The distribution of the scent is certainly important, as well as the most important thing, which is the quality of it and how that compares to what it costs. So let's approach this discussion by saying niche, designer might not be the best way to approach it. But for the purposes of discussion, we'll call them niche and designer to make it a little bit easier. So those in the designer category often make the argument that our scents just smell better. People like them more. We get more compliments. Nobody likes those weird notes that you find in niche scents. Nobody actually likes the smell of oud. Nobody likes the smell of those weird ingredients that they put in there. Half of them are fake anyways. There's not a lot of evidence to support any of those arguments. There's very little evidence to support that they are indeed fake. There's little evidence to support that nobody likes them. But I think that argument misses the point. If you're wearing scent solely for the purposes of impressing somebody else, you're doing it wrong. The first goal in wearing something should be for yourself. Do you like it? Do you like the way it smells? Does it make you feel good? Does it remind you of something from your past that you enjoy? Because if it doesn't, if you don't like it, and you're just wearing it because you want to get a bunch of compliments from other people, on the flip side, there's a lot of argument that niche always uses better ingredients. Niche always has better ideas. They release scents that are more unique, that are higher quality. Again, not a lot of evidence to support that being true 100% of the time. There's also a faction of people who exclusively wear niche scents that seem to do so because it makes them feel better to wear something that's more expensive. And it almost becomes like a badge of honor, in a sense. I'm not sure that that's also a really good idea. So, if you're wearing a scent because you want to be able to tell people that it costs $500, or that the bottle was dipped in gold and has Swarovski crystals on the cap, you're doing it wrong. I think a lot can be accomplished in this debate between the two sides by acknowledging the simple fact that we should all be wearing what we like and go from there. When I put that black gold on before I came out today, it was because I wanted to wear it. It wasn't because I wanted to tell somebody, oh, I'm wearing Mancera. It's from France. No, it has nothing to do with that. I'm not trying to impress somebody else. If somebody likes it, great. You know, everyone loves getting compliments. But if that's your main goal, you're missing the point. I think when we get into the argument of how good is the actual scent, that's where the price really comes into play. The expectation we have when we make a purchase of a niche scent at a high price is that it's really going to be very good. You're paying a premium for a product that supposedly is better. Therefore, the bar is set a lot higher. So when that niche scent, that expensive scent, we should say, only lasts 2 or 3 hours, that's not good. It may smell awesome, but if it dies in 3 hours and you got to put it back on, well, they've missed the mark. They haven't given you the value that you were searching for. Whereas if that designer scent that you only paid $75 for, or even less, only lasts 3 hours, well, that still sucks, but there's a bit of an inherent understanding that I paid less for it, so the value I get in return may not be as high. The same goes for quality of ingredients. Again, you pay more, you expect to get a higher quality scent. You expect that the blending is better, that you're not going to get things that smell very artificial. And before we go any further, let's get into the natural versus artificial synthetic argument. Everybody uses synthetics. Everyone. Unless it says on the label that it is 100% natural perfume, pretty good chance that there are synthetics in there. That's not the point though. When you watch my videos and I tell you that something smells synthetic, that means that the quality of the synthetic ingredient they used is low, that it doesn't smell like the real thing. There are some synthetic ingredients out there that smell fantastic, that are great representations of the real thing. And they're used by perfumers because it may be more advantageous to the overall performance of the scent. There may be a quality or price component to it. But just because a synthetic is used doesn't mean that the scent is automatically bad. And just because I or somebody else says that it smells synthetic means that it automatically is a bad scent. So when you buy a designer scent, that costs a little bit less. But the ingredients are so poor, it doesn't actually smell like what it says it smells like, or it smells like a very, very artificial, nasty smelling chemical. That's where a lot of the people who prefer the higher end scents get their argument. Now, there are a lot of really good designer scents out there at a great price that perform well, that smell really good, that smell like they've used quality ingredients, even if they're synthetic. Some of the ones I like, there's one from D Squared, it's called Potion Royal Black, a really great leather scent, a little bit of rose in it too, something we don't see from the designer houses a lot. I wish a lot more of designer houses would expand their horizons in the ideas that they come up with. You can still release them at the same price that they do, in the same concentrations that they do, but stop releasing the same thing over and over again. It's gotten to the point now that when a designer house releases a new men's scent or a women's scent, that over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years, there will be a sport flanker, an extreme flanker, an intense flanker, a ice flanker, an aqua flanker, or some variation of that. Oftentimes, those will be very redundant. Maybe they'll tweak one note here and there, and probably not. Sometimes the performance will be brought down quite a bit. Often it'll be very similar to something else that's on the market. And for me personally, that's where I like to just stray away from that stuff. It's not appealing to me. Come up with a new idea. Stop devoting so much of your money into ridiculous ad campaigns and spend it more on the actual scent itself. But unfortunately, a lot of American fragrance consumers, particularly on the men's side, their interests fall between two very narrow parallel lines. And when you deviate from them in terms of the marketing of it, in terms of the names of it, in terms of the types of ingredients that are used, they don't sell very well. So it goes both ways. Now, when we're talking about niche scents, higher price scents, into the $200, $300, $400 range, there's a much higher bar for them. We expect more out of something we pay more for, right? So that also means that when that scent succeeds at meeting that bar, it has achieved a higher level of success, so to speak, than a lower priced item that achieved a lower bar. Usually. Now, when we're talking about niche, higher price scents, in the past, a lot of them were small lines, distributed much more in a limited fashion, but a lot of the quote-unquote designer houses have stepped into that game with a lot of private line scents. One of the first was Tom Ford with the private blend releases, the first 12 of which were spectacular fragrances. It was one of the best initial releases of a line that I can remember off the top of my head. Way back in 2007 when they first came out, those 12 were just extraordinary, even if you didn't like the scent. Performance was great, execution was great, the ideas were great, very well blended, quality ingredients. They met that high bar. A lot of other lines have tried to replicate that. I did the video on Yves Saint Laurent earlier. Not so good. Givenchy has one out that's very average. And there's a lot that have tried to move into that niche category and haven't done so. And it's watered down the idea of what a niche scent is. There are some who think that a niche scent is only, or a niche house rather, is only one who exclusively makes fragrance. And that's a ridiculous idea. That's just absurd. That's made up, not true. There's no substantiation for that. If that were the case, pretty much nobody would fall into that category. Because at this point, most houses make body care lines, make room fragrances, make accessories. Look at somebody like Andy Tower, the epitome of what would have fallen into that niche category in the past. Even he makes now perfumed soaps, room sprays. He even makes scarves. It's a bad argument. Let's not go there. That does not define what an independent or niche house is. I think a good way to sum up this discussion, when I lived in Los Angeles, way back when, I was at the Neiman's in Beverly Hills chatting with the Tom Ford representative, who flat out told me that the direction of their line and many others, as told to them by the marketing representatives from those houses, is that they were shifting more towards marketing their products in a way so that, and I quote, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills wannabes could tell all their friends that they're wearing Tom Ford. And I think you can extrapolate that argument to a lot of other high-end, high-priced lines, as well as some designer lines. That's a bad way to approach wearing your scent. If you're wearing your designer scent because you want to tell your friends that you're wearing Armani, you're just showing off. If you're wearing your Raja Dove so that you can tell your friends that you're wearing something that costs $800, don't do that. To paraphrase the greatest of all time, let your scent speak. We'll see you next time.